So they were affianced, but they could not marry till Salvatore had done his military service. So Salvatore was supposed to undergo his military service before the time they were, before they get married to each other. So they had one ceremony, and that was of engagement. They were affianced to each other. Affianced means engaged, or a promise which is given to get married, right? So, and when he left the time, so I was discussing that which character trait of Salvatore is highlighted in these lines, that that is when he wept like a child. Again, simile is used here. So when he wept like a child, what does it mean? That he was very emotional, right? He was a very emotional person, and so that is why he will weep like a child before leaving his island and going for military training. It was hard for one who had never been less free than the birds to be at the beck and call of others. So till the present time, he had lived his life like someone who was as free as a bird. Again, a simile is used. Means there was nobody to give him orders, nobody to instruct him. He has lived his life of freedom till the present time. And now he was, see, in military, you have to obey the orders of your seniors. You have to be very disciplined. You have to obey the instructions and the commands and the orders of the people who are higher in authority. So it was very difficult for him. And imagine a boy who, till his youth, he had lived his life as free as a bird, means without anyone having a control over his life, without anyone telling him what is to be done and what is not to be done. And now, when he was given orders, at the beck and call means at the instructions, the commands and the orders of others. So it was very difficult for him to handle this. Obviously, if a person is not used to taking orders and instructions, or if the person is not used to be commanded by others, what will happen? He will not like it. It was harder still to live in the battleship. So these were the problems he faced. The first thing was he was not used to obeying orders and instructions from others, and so living at the beck and call of others, or obeying others all the time, was very difficult for him. Then the second thing was that it was harder still to live in a battleship with strangers. Then it was harder for him to live in the battleship and living with the people whom he was not acquainted to, whom he didn't know, right? So it was even more difficult for him to live with people who are strangers to him, instead of in a little white cottage among the vines. So till now he was used to living in the living among the vines, means in a white cottage, in a white hut, which was covered with vines, which was surrounded by vines all around. So now it was difficult. He was not able to adjust to his new life, that is in a battleship. He found it difficult to adjust.
Ma'am, are you?
He was living in the, like, he was living on an island, right, which was covered with vines, and there was a sea, and there was a cottage in which he lived. So there was a lot of natural beauty. He was living, he was very close to nature, you can say. And then all of a sudden he's supposed to live in a ship. So again, he was like not very comfortable living in a battleship. And then the company which he got, he didn't know any of them. All of them were strangers to him. So these were the three reasons why he was not able to adjust. The first thing was that he was not used to taking orders, and now he was at the beck and call of others, of his seniors, or the people who were in authority. The second reason was that till now he has lived in a little white cottage which was surrounded by vines, means very close to nature, and now he was not able to adjust in the battleship. And the third was that he didn't have anyone of his family near him, and this was the first time that he was away from his family. We feel that homesickness right? A person who is not used to staying away from his family members and staying away from his parents or his or the people whom he know, then what happens? He will feel that homesickness. So he was feeling homesick among the vines. And when he was ashore, and then when the ship used to go ashore or to some country, then to walk in the noisy, friendless cities with streets so crowded that he was frightened to cross them. So then when the ship reached some country, or obviously the ship will reach different shores, right? So when the ship reached different shores, and the cities, the developed cities, they were very different from the island in which he lived. In the islands are not very crowded places, and the cities are very crowded, right? So he really was unhappy in those crowded cities and crowded streets, that he was so scared that at times he was afraid to cross the streets, the busy streets and the busy roads of the cities, because he was not used to living in these cities, living in these heavily crowded cities. When he had been used to silent paths and the mountains and the sea. Why? Because till now he was trained, he was used to living in the sea, in the silent paths, in the quiet areas, and these crowded cities where there is a lot of noise, lot of confusion, chaos. He was not used to these areas. So that is why he disliked, he was not able to adjust, he was not feeling comfortable. I suppose it had never struck him that Ischia, which he looked at every evening. So that was the place where he belonged. It was the name of the island where Salvatore lived, Ischia, right? So Ischia, it is an island in Italy. So he belonged to that place, which he looked at every evening. It was like a fairy island in the sunset, to see what the weather would be like next day. So it was, see, when you are living at a place, right, you become so used to it that you take those things for granted. Like, you remember the story horse and two goats? The horse was not appealing for that villager Muni. Why? Because he was very much used to it. Every day he saw that horse statue, so that is why he didn't find it to be a great work of art. But that American who came, when he saw that horse for the first time, he was mesmerized by the beauty of that statue. Yes or no? So that the same case is with Salvatore. Salvatore was so much was used to that island, so he didn't understand how beautiful that island was when he was living on that island. Right? It is only when we leave something, then we realize the importance of that particular thing. As long as we are living in a particular place, we take things for granted. As long as we are living with our family members, we take our family members for granted, right? Especially the mothers, they are always taken for granted, right? You shout at them, scream at them, do everything, but once you move out of your house, then what happens? Then you realize their importance. So that is human nature, right? We humans are like this. We get used to certain things, and then we fail to realize the importance. It's only when there is an absence of that particular thing in our life, whether it is your home, whether it is your surroundings, or whether it is the people in your life, then you start realizing how important they are. Then you start missing them, right? So the same thing was with Salvatore. He didn't realize, it never struck him. It never struck him means that he didn't realize that Ischia which he looked at every morning, that the island which he looked at every morning to see what the weather would be like next day. So every evening he used to look at Ischia and just to analyze what type of weather will it be the next day, because he was a fisherman, so he need to understand the weather before venturing out in the sea. So every evening he used to look and try to understand what the weather would be the next day. Or Vesuvius, early in dawn. Or he also didn't realize how important that Vesuvius was to him. Vesuvius is a mountain, right? A volcano ice. Early in dawn, which looked like a pearl in dawn, means when there was sunrise, it used to shine like a pearl. Had anything to do with him at all. So when he was on that island, he didn't understand. It never struck him. Right? He never even gave a thought to it that these things, that Mount Vesuvius will be so important for him, or that island here will be so important for him. But when he ceased to have them before his eyes, he realized in some dim fashion that they were as much a part of him as his hands and his feet. But when he left that island, then he realized this fact. These things dawned upon him. Then he realized the importance of that island, Ischia, and that Mount Vesuvius. How important, how much these things were a part of him. How much his home, how much his place, how much his island was a part of him. Right? They were like a part of his body. They were very important to him. Why? Because then he started missing these things. They were as important to him as his hands and legs. It was then he realized the importance of these things in his life. Clear? He was dreadfully homesick. And all these were the signs of homesickness. Homesickness means when you are out of your home or your hometown and you feel depressed and you feel restless and you want to go back to your home. That is homesickness. But it was hardest of all to be parted from the girl he loved with all his passionate young heart. But he missed everything about his home. He missed everything about his island, about the place where he had spent the early years of his life. But the thing which he missed the most was the girl whom he loved, right? Passionate young heart. So the girl whom he loved passionately, the girl whom he loved so much, the girl whom he loved so deeply, right? He missed that girl the most, means the girl to whom he was engaged. He wrote to her in his childlike handwriting, means he was not fishermen are not very well educated people, so his handwriting will also not be very good. So in his childlike handwriting, he wrote long, ill-spelled letters, and he was very poor in spellings also. So the spellings were also not correct, but he still wrote those letters. What does this show? The innocence. Means he was not very well educated. His writing was not good, but the innocence of his love. But still, he wrote long letters to his fiancée, right? Just to express his love to her. That was the innocence of his love. In which he told her how constantly he thought of her and how much he longed to be back. How much he longed to be back means how much he desired to go back to that island. In those letters, he told his the girl whom he was engaged to, he told her that how much he wants to come back and how much he's missing her. So he wrote these things in his letters to that girl. He was sent here and there. And then what happened in his life? He was sent here and there, means he was posted to different places in the ship. In that battleship, he traveled to different places, to Spezia, to Venice, to Bari, and finally to China. So these were the places which he traveled. He traveled to China, he traveled to Bari, he traveled to Spezia, and to Venice. Here he fell ill of some mysterious ailment. Ailment means disease. And then when he reached China, he became seriously sick. He fell ill. So some disease got hold of him and he was not well. That kept him in hospitals for months. And because he fell sick, he was admitted in hospitals and there he spent months. For many days he was hospitalized. He bore it with the mute and uncomprehending patience of a dog. See, underline these lines. If you will use these lines in your long answer question, it will obviously have a better impact. So what does this show about Salvatore? Mute and uncomprehending means he was, obviously when you are in the hospital and you are not well, life will be very painful for you. But he bore all that pain and suffering with the uncomprehending, mute and uncomprehending patience of a dog. It means, what does it show? It shows the endurance of Salvatore. A stoic he was. He underwent all the pain, all the suffering, all the physical pain. See, it was not only physical pain for him. There was a lot of emotional pain which he was undergoing. He was not with the people whom he loved so much. He didn't want to be there, but still he was there. So there was emotional pain also, emotional agony, emotional suffering also. And along with that emotional suffering, when he was hospitalized for a month, then he had that physical pain also. He was undergoing treatment, so obviously he'll not be feeling healthy. But he bore everything, he tolerated everything, he underwent all the pain and suffering with the mute, very quietly. He never complained to anyone. Uncomprehending means something which is very difficult to understand. Patience. He had so much patience inside him. So the character trait which is highlighted in these lines is that he was, that is his endurance. Salvatore's endurance. He was a very enduring person. He tolerated everything. Like an uncomprehending patience of a dog means, like a dog tolerates. A dog will tolerate and will bear all the atrocities of his master. So in the similar manner, Salvatore bore everything very patiently and very quietly, without comprehending, complaining, like that of a dog. When he learned that it was a form of rheumatism, and the disease which he was suffering from was rheumatism. Rheumatism is a disease in which your joints, they become stiff, and then they are very painful. The muscles and the joints, they become, it's a disease of the muscles and the joints, they become very stiff, and then it's very painful. Your body becomes painful. So he bore this pain, this suffering, very quietly. That made him, and now because he was suffering from rheumatism, and so he was not fit for military service, so he was asked to go back home. So what happened? It was a form of rheumatism that made him unfit for further service. So he was now declared as unfit for further service. It was told to him that now he cannot continue his military service, and so he should go back home. His heart exulted. And when he came to know that now he is being thrown out of military, he will not be able to continue with his service, instead of feeling depressed and sad about it, he was very happy. Exulted means he was very happy about it. When he came to know that now he will not have to do his job further, he was very happy. For he could go home. Why was he happy? Because now he got the opportunity to go to the place where he always wanted to be. Because now, as he was being thrown out of the uh, military, so he can go home and be with the people whom he loved, and be in the place where he always wanted to be. And he did not bother. In fact, he scarcely listened when the doctors told him that he would never again be quiet. In fact, he was so happy. His excitement and his happiness was so much that he didn't even listen to the things which the doctor was telling, and he completely ignored when the doctor told him that he will not be able to lead a normal life again in future. His life will not be normal. Means throughout his life he will have to undergo this suffering, this pain. He didn't care what the doctor was telling, because he was so happy to go home. That excitement that now he'll be with his family, he will be back to his island, and he will be with the girl whom he loved so much. These thoughts gave him so much happiness that he didn't bother what the doctor was saying, that now he will never be able to lead a normal life, and he will have to undergo this pain and suffering throughout his life. So he just ignored all the things which were said by the doctor. What did he care when he was going back to the little island he loved so well, and the girl who was waiting for him? So he thought that the girl also loved him as much as he loved the girl. So he thought that now, why will he care about the doctor's advice and what rubbish the doctor is talking about, when he's going back to the place where he always wanted to be, where he will meet his family members, where he'll meet the girl whom he loved so much, and where he'll be able to enjoy his life the way he has done till the present time. that's it for today. We'll end today's class at this point, and in the next class, we'll start from